Everyone for joining us this afternoon. We'll be recording this meeting to help others learn from this in the future. A replay will be available. So please mute your lines so we can minimize the background noise. My name is Wendy Sachs, and I'm a member of the board of Plant-Powered Metro New York. And on behalf of all of us, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Plant-Powered Metro New York is a community-based organization committed to our collective health empowerment through a whole food, plant-based nutrition, which is an evidence-based approach to nutrition that can prevent, treat, and even reverse chronic disease. While we normally prefer to offer live sessions to build community around health and nutrition, we are ongoingly offering this program as part of a web series during the COVID-19 season or seasons. So we're glad you've come to learn. Thank you for connecting with us today, and thank you for finding community here despite all the physical distancing. Okay, I am hereby going to introduce our beloved Chef Carole. Chef Carole, what do you have on the menu for us today?
Hello and welcome to our demo today, and thank you for joining so very much. We are starting out our summer with basil as our theme, and I thought it would be good to learn how to make pesto. I know maybe some of you already know how to make pesto, but the key here is that we're making pesto with no oil and no cheese. So, and it's still as delicious. And I thought that I would begin first by showing you and talking to you a little bit about basil, okay? A lot of people ask me, how do I store my produce when I get home? And every vegetable and every green has a little bit of a different way of storing. But the best, most ideal way, if you have room in your refrigerator, is to bring home your bunch of basil, cut the bottom off as if it were a bouquet of flowers, and then you put it in a jar with water, and then if possible, you put a plastic bag over the top of it. That is the best and most ideal way. But if you have a very, very crowded refrigerator like I do, sometimes this is not possible, and there are other ways that you can store the basil. You can take it all off its stems, and I just want to unveil this. I just bought this basil yesterday, and I kind of make it a practice of mine really not to let it go for a couple days. I really try, it's kind of like when I buy corn on the cob. I try to immediately, you know, if I bring it home, I think that's when it's the freshest because it's just been picked, and I try to make something with it pretty soon. I don't let it go into the middle of the week unless, you know, I need a few leaves that I'm saving for maybe some spaghetti or something. But this is ultimately was just bought yesterday, and you can see the leaves are gigantic and very beautiful. You can also take the leaves off and store it between a tea towel and just kind of roll it tightly and kind of like take the leaves off, put it on the tea towel, and then roll up the towel, and then put that in a plastic bag, and that would be another way of storing it in your refrigerator. But the most ideal way is to keep it as its bouquet, okay? So I want to then show you that I had another bunch, which I have already washed, and I wash it in the sink, and then I put it in a salad spinner, and I just get off all the water. So we have a lot of basil here, okay? And I'm not gonna use all this today, but if you have, you know, and every bunch of basil is a different size. So sometimes I don't follow the recipe exact because I have, you know, a lot of basil, and sometimes I have a little basil. But let's get started on the pesto because that's a key, and I want to be able to show you as many things today as possible. So I'm gonna take a Cuisinart here. And you could make this in your Vitamix. You could make this, if you didn't have any kind of an electric mixer, you could do a mortar and pestle, which is the way we used to actually do it in the restaurant. Believe it or not, I worked for somebody that was a chef in San Francisco, and she never used any machines at all. She thought the machines had a way of taking away the fresh flavor, and so we did everything practically by hand, and our pesto was always with a mortar and pestle. And that's the most common way. So before we go measuring, our recipe, and I hope everybody has the recipes, and again, I say this all the time, but I want you to know that I write the recipes down for you so that you have a list of ingredients and you have a guide, but they are not the Bible, okay? So you have to learn how to ad-lib and add more things, take away things, and be a little bit creative, but it's just use the recipe as a guide. So we're gonna start with 4 cloves of garlic, okay? And I've already taken the skins off, and they're pretty big cloves of garlic, but they're gonna go, and honestly, everything could go in all at one time, but I like giving it a little whirl separately, the garlic, so we don't end up with any big chunks. So I'm just gonna, what we call salt. I'm just gonna pulse that just a very few times, and you see you have all the chopped garlic. Now it says that we need 1.5 cups of basil. And I'm going to get our measuring cups here, and I'm going to show you your way of measuring 1.5 cups could vary very differently from me. And it's really hard to say how much exactly is 1.5 cups, especially because I have a lot of really big leaves here. But what I try to do is I just try to pack it, you know, and it's an estimate, okay? So this is 1 cup, and if it were 2 cups, and we only need 1.5 cups, really it's okay. And I think that's pretty good. That's our 1 cup of basil there. And this makes about 1/2 cup of pesto. And then we need another 1/2 cup. And again, just putting it inside here, packing it in. And you know, it's really kind of an estimate, right? It's not an exact science here. And we'll use this other basil later on because our whole day today we're making basil things. Okay, and the next thing that you need besides is you need the pine nuts actually, which I need to get. And in the meantime, I'm gonna do a tablespoon and a half of nutritional yeast, okay? And nutritional yeast is what is going to be the replacement for us on the cheese, because it's very cheesy. And I'm going to find, I actually have a measuring spoon that is 1.5 tablespoons. Okay, so we're just going to put that here, okay? 1.5 tablespoons. If you felt like putting 2 tablespoons because you like it more strongly cheesy flavor, put 2 tablespoons. But I particularly like the 1.5 tablespoons. And then we need pine nuts, okay? And pine nuts are tiny little gems that are actually quite expensive. And at this point, you could put any kind of nut. You can put a walnut, you could put pistachio, you can put pepitos, the pumpkin seeds. I love making it with that. You could put almonds if you want. It's kind of probably be last on my list, but the most common would be the pine nuts and the walnuts. And I love pistachios because they're rich. But we need 1/4 cup of these. And usually what I do is I like to toast them. Now you don't have to toast them at all, but toasting them actually gives them a little better flavor. So I'm just going to get my cast iron pot here, because I didn't do this ahead. And we're just gonna show you how to toast these. And if you remember, I'm always talking about getting the pan hot, okay? So in the meantime, what we can do while we're waiting for the pan is we can just pulse this just a very few times. And this gets and get everything chopped up. Okay, and what's gonna hold all this together is lemon juice. Now, normally this is when you pour the olive oil in, and I have been eating pesto like this for at least 20 years because somehow I learned this technique of replacing the oil with the lemon juice long before I gave up olive oil. And the reason that I like it so very much is because it's light. It doesn't weigh you down. I used to sometimes eat so much pasta and pesto, and then I would have to go feel like I was taking a nap. So, and it felt really like I was you know, just felt weighed down. I don't know if you experience that when you eat in a restaurant, that it just feels so heavy in your stomach. The reason it feels so heavy is it's not the pasta, it's not the basil, and it's not just, it's definitely the olive oil that's like weighing you down. So I use lemon juice as a replacement for that. Let's get our pine nuts in the pan. And again, they don't have to be roasted. I just like the flavor of that. And in the meantime, while we're watching those, because you have to watch the pine nuts very, very carefully, because they can burn like in 1 minute. So I'm just showing you that I'm trying to, and I see that I have a few already toasted in the pan, because they must have been left over from the last time that I did pine nuts. In the meantime, what we're going to do is get our lemon juice ready. And I have a lemon here, and I already have a little bit of lemon juice. And usually before I open a lemon, I like to zest it, okay? And I collect that zest, and I just put it in here because it is something that has a lot of flavor, and I don't like to waste this. And if I have any leftover lemon juice, after I squeeze the juice and I use it in the pesto, I just put it in the jar in the refrigerator, and then I have it for the next time, okay? And I also like using this lemon zest as a way of bringing up the flavor. So let's just do that, and let's, I'm gonna cut this in half, okay? And I have the juicer here, and I like talking about this one because this is made by Chefin, and I like to promote it because it's just a good juicer. And we need a quarter cup, and oops, I just got squirted in the face. There's nothing like getting squirted in the face. I better toss those. We're just gonna stop this for 1 minute here. We're going to toss these, okay? And they're getting brown, okay? And I just need to wipe my glasses now, because now I can't see due to the lemons. But you have to stand and watch these pine nuts. I mean, I know my back is towards these, definitely. but they can burn in like literally 1 second. That's what can happen. And I can smell them so strongly, and we won't have to let them cool. I'm just gonna put them right directly. And you can see, I just wanna show you that they're brown, okay? And they can go in here right this very moment. And any kind of nuts that you're putting in there is definitely, you know, you're putting a little fat content into your pesto. Now let's just see if I can manage to squeeze this lemon without getting lemon juice in my face. Okay. And if any of you have copper pans, I don't know if you know this is like grandmother's trick. She used to save all these lemons, and I saved them too, like she did. And you clean your copper pans with salt and lemon juice, and it makes them all really shiny. So I save all these, and I also throw them in my water that I'm always drinking because they're delicious. So we need a quarter cup of juice, and I'm going to just measure that. And you do have a quarter cup here, but I'm going to use a glass measuring cup. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure I don't have any seeds, which I'm sure that I don't. Okay. We're going to measure that, and we have a quarter cup, almost a quarter cup, not quite. And I'm going to use a little bit of this zest too, because that would be very nice in there. And I'm going to move that, and we're just going to pour this in. Simple, right? And we're going to pulse it. And we're going to let it run for a few seconds. And I always go in there making sure that I give it some stir. And you can see right now that it's really kind of pasty, okay? It's not quite holding together. I mean, I would like it to be a little bit creamier and smoother, okay? So I'm gonna just let it go another few minutes. And stop talking for 1 second. We'll get a little more lemon. What I wanted to say is for those of you that are allergic to nuts in this pesto and you would prefer not, you don't want to use any kind of nut, then I suggest you use some cantaloupe beans, the little white beans. You can, those would be delicious. They would give you your creamy part of the replacement of the nuts. And now I always give everything I, mix a taste. Now to scrape everything down. And I want to just show you what this is looking like, but I also want to just taste it first to make sure. It's perfect, actually. And the reason that it's perfect is because the garlic is really fresh. The basil was strong and fragrant and fresh. And the nutritional yeast, and then the roasted pine nuts. And that is really it. Just going to give it one little whirl around because I like it creamy. And then we're going to be done with this right this very moment. I'm going to move this, get some of this out of here, and we're going to continue with making the rest of our dish. And before I surrender that, I'm going to get some water boiling. So I'm going to get 2 burners on here and get that water boiling. And what I'm going to do is just get rid of this, and I'm going to show this to you. Again, I did make a ton, and you can easily double this recipe. You know, I'm one person here, so I always try to make, like this would last me, I don't know, 3, 4 meals. So again, if you're a family, just double the recipe, and that is our pesto, okay? And I just showing you that, and I'm gonna get it into a jar, okay? So that is gonna happen. In the meantime, we're gonna start working on the rest of, we are making a green bean and soft polenta and roasted tomato lunch or dinner. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I very much like soft pesto, soft polenta, and it's really delicious with roasted tomatoes. So I thought I would show you that. You know that you can put the pesto over noodles, okay? And you don't need me necessarily to show you how to cook noodles, but obviously if you were to make a nice pesto sauce and then put it over your pasta, that would be delicious. I thought that I would take a few minutes to show you about making zucchini noodles. It's one of my favorite things, and it's something you can readily buy at the Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or Fairway, depending on where you live, is the noodles. They have them in the vegetable aisle, and I have a little cute spiralizer, and I just thought I would just kind of show you how this little cute spiralizer works. This is a Japanese one, and you just literally put your zucchini in like that, and out comes these little curls, which I really like and prefer actually over the pasta. I like it for green salads, and in this case, we could toss it with the pesto. Just want to show you alternatives. Okay, so this is the curly zucchini that you get, and you can do this with beets, and this is a worthwhile little tiny spiralizer that I like a lot. I can show you the brand. This is the box here, and I'll spell the brand. It's BENRINER. And it's a little Japanese spiralizer, and it comes with 3 different blades that make different size curls. Okay? And so I'm just going to put that in here. I love using potatoes with this spiralizer. I mean, it's an infinite amount of things that you can do with the spiralizer. And it's an inexpensive thing to have. And it doesn't take up a lot of room, actually. And I'm just going to finish showing you here. I'm trying to get this going here. sure what is happening. We must have a little technical problem here. And I have to, as a screw, I'm just going to see what's going on here. Because there's a big piece stuck here. And now I'm going to, so this is what the blade looks like. Okay, just kind of showing you that. Nothing to be afraid of. It's not like a mandolin. A mandolin you have to be most careful with on your fingers. This too, you actually have to be very careful, but it doesn't feel as dangerous to me as, I don't know why I am having a problem with this rest of this, but we'll just use this and see if we can figure out that spiralizer. For now, we're just gonna have this many noodles, okay? Maybe that can be figured out. So in the meantime, we're going to start the polenta, okay? And I'm making polenta for one person, and I'm making what we call soft polenta, okay? And soft polenta means that it's not gonna be firm. It's gonna be like porridge. And we're going to get, polenta is like a cornmeal. It's not corn flour, it's not cornmeal, it is really polenta. And it comes in different grades. And I just want to show you that, this is polenta. And we need to have a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to get a 1/4 cup. And we are putting that into 1 cup of boiling water. Now the ratio, if you were making a lot of polenta, when I worked in a restaurant, we made a big vat of polenta. But it's always 1/4, so it's 4 to 1 basically, okay? So we're doing 1/4 of a cup to 1 cup of water. So if you wanted to make polenta for 2 people, you would use 2 cups of water and you would use a 1/2 cup of polenta, okay? Now polenta is one of those very rich things that also has Parmesan cheese, also has a lot of butter in it, but it really doesn't need any of those things at all. So I'm gonna put this polenta in, and we kind of have to stay with it. We have to watch it carefully. And you don't want to just, I just dumped it in, but you want to just be careful. I get usually a little whisk, and I get it stirring around immediately, because it's one of those things that actually can have lumps if you just dump it in. So I usually kind of try to get it, stirring right away. Now the back burner has some water, and that is boiling for the green beans, okay? And we're just gonna have that, and we have to be careful and watch that. Now the only thing that's gonna go into this polenta is just some black pepper. But if you if you wanted it to also be kind of a cheesier flavor, you could definitely add some nutritional use to it. I make polenta a lot, and I pour it onto a sheet pan, and I let it firm up, and I use it as a pizza crust. And I just put, tomato sauce and mushrooms. But again, we're gonna make it soft so that it's very much like porridge, okay? And the back burner is for our green beans. Okay, so we're doing quite a few things here at the same time. So let's get, the next thing that we have is our green beans, okay? And I cut and trimmed, and I've made a lot of just green beans here. And I just want to show you, obviously, these are the green beans. And for those of you who might not know about green beans, I usually try to get 2 colored green beans. As the summer progresses, you'll easily be able to find green, yellow, and purple green beans. And I try to buy a little bit of each, because when you're making your plate, I always try to put as much color on as possible. So the beans have a stem actually where they grow. They grow like this on a vine, and they have a little tiny tail at the bottom, and you don't need to cut. Some people think they need to cut both ends of the green bean, but you actually only need to cut the tip where the stem is. The actual little tail, unless it's brown like this, you don't need to cut the tail. It's just the part where the stem is, okay? So I usually line a bunch of them up, and I put all their stems at the top, and then I just take them all away at one time. And then I cut that like that. So that is going to be our green beans, okay? So, and we're cooking this polenta, and I'm just making sure that we're stirring it, and it's gonna need to come to a boil. The other part, okay, so this is boiling back here. So we're gonna do a technique for these green beans, which is called blanching. And the blanching is going to be just putting them in the boiling water, and letting them become bright green. And within maybe 2 or 3 minutes, those beans will become bright green, and then you want to get them out of their pan immediately. And you want to get them into ice bath, okay? So I'm just gonna get a little bit of ice out so you understand the ice bath. Sometimes I don't have the ice, so you know, I don't always do it the proper way, and I just get very, very cold water. But it is best to have a real ice bath, because the colder that water is, the better. And those beans will just go right into this ice water, and they'll get shocked, and they'll stop their cooking immediately. And that's the goal. That's what you're trying to do, okay? Now, I see that the polenta is starting to really cook. And I wrote a note in the recipe, when you're making this, and I'm only making a very little, but if you're making, I don't know, 4 times the recipe for a lot, you have to be very careful with this, because when it starts to boil rapidly, it sometimes wants to boil and just pop out. And it can pop out onto your stove, or it can pop out onto your skin, but just be careful, okay? Because you can lower the gas. But you definitely want to keep it kind of at a low rolling boil, okay? And these beans are nearly done. The other part of our meal that we're making are roasted tomatoes. Now, I've done the roasted tomatoes ahead of time, but I'm going to explain to you how you roast tomatoes. It's pretty much how you roast anything. You want to get your stove at 400 degrees. Even 425 is okay, but recommend 400. And you want to preheat that and get it very, very hot. And again, a lot of recipes, if you look and someone's telling you how to roast cauliflower, how you roast broccoli or carrots or tomatoes, anything, they will say drizzle olive oil over it, and then you could lay a bed of herbs on top of it to infuse some flavor, and then put it into the oven, and then cook it for 30 to 40 minutes. Roasting intensifies the flavor, and I love cooking in the oven. But because it's summertime, I really try to limit how much 400-degree oven cooking I'm doing. But it's hard to avoid it entirely, because once the tomatoes and the eggplant starts coming out, all I can start doing is thinking about how good they'll be roasted. So it's kind of a it's kind of a contradictory thing for me. And soon we're gonna be having all those beautiful vegetables. Now our beans are definitely done. Okay, and you might think, gosh, she's doing a lot of things, but I am doing. We're doing a lot of things all over time, and I'm showing you how steamy hot those are. We're gonna turn the back burner off, and we're gonna get those beans right away into this water. Okay, they become bright green. Now, I don't know, some people like to overcook their vegetables until they're gray. I would like to not recommend that. Honestly, you can eat these green beans raw, just like the snap peas that I've been buying in the market lately that I've been eating crazily. But the blanching is great because it gets it cooked enough, but doesn't get it over, just very, very few minutes, okay? Please don't overcook your vegetables. I had a mother-in-law that liked to, won't tell you where she was from, but but she loved to make them, the green beans, so she put them on at 9 in the morning and they'd be ready at 5, and they were gray. So I often think about that as a funny story, I do want to show you the polenta. It's actually, I don't know, for me, polenta is a little sexy, but it's like this, okay? And again, it looks almost like your oatmeal, okay? And you'll say, how do I know? How do I know that it's done, okay? You're gonna know that it's done because it's gonna look smooth and creamy, and it's not looking gritty anymore, okay? And again, this is a very high, normally when the Italians make polenta, they add a lot of butter and a lot of Parmesan cheese, and you always add a little bit of black pepper actually. But again, it's not necessary to have the butter. The butter just adds a lot of fat and richness, and the polentas, if you're using good polenta, the corn flavor is already delicious. And I do add a couple twists of black and, you know, freshly grated pepper. I like that, okay? And if for some reason your polenta is getting really thick and it's beginning to stick to the pan, just go and get a little water and just add a little more water, okay? So you're looking for it to be the consistency that you like. And again, sometimes you need a little extra water, okay? And again, not quite done, but it gives me enough time to show you the couple other things that we have going. So I want to show you the tomatoes, and they're quite beautiful. They look like this, okay? And I want to tell you how I did this because I did almost nothing, okay? So you can do this by yourself. You don't need me to show you, but I'm going to tell you, you get a sheet pan, and you either get a Silpat baking mat, if you have one, a silicone, you know, it's like a silicone mat, or you use parchment paper. Whichever, use one or the other, because it will help you clean up. And I never do without one or the other, okay? And then you're gonna just take your cherry tomatoes. I try to buy the ones that are all different colors and different pear ones, round ones, yellow ones. And I just put them on the sheet pan. And then I take a piece of garlic and I slice it very, very thin. And then I toss the tomatoes in a little bit of lime juice, lemon juice, or orange juice. Any citrus, I just give it a little bit of liquid and I just toss them with the garlic. And if you didn't have any citrus, you could use a little teeny bit of water. If you had a spray bottle, you could spray them with water. You just need just a little bit of moisture while they're cooking in the oven, okay? And then they naturally collapse on their own and they naturally get brown. I'm just kind of showing you how they look. I would like to put it in my hand. And it's like candy. There are little pieces of garlic down here that have cooked, that are delicious, that have caramelized with the tomato. And so that's part of our meal. And I'm going to show you this, okay? And this very, very creamy. It looks great, actually. It's soft, it's creamy. And I'm going to start to plate these things, okay? And I have to just move a few of the items that I have here. Not too far away, because we're going to need them again. And you could do plate this in a soup bowl. I have these little pans that I like to eat from. I used to make a lot of paella and little things, and they're like little quiche pans, and I tend to serve myself out of these little pans. So if you didn't have one of these, I would probably use a flat, something flat, because you're trying to show everything that you're doing. Okay. Now we're going to get a spatula, and the spatula is right here, and this is the polenta. Okay. You can see that it's soft. Now, if we were to cook this polenta, cover it with a piece of saran wrap, and I literally let it cool for just a little bit, put a piece of saran wrap, and then put it in the refrigerator or let it sit out for on the counter, this polenta would actually firm up and it would become solid. And you could then, do lots of different things, but that's a different class. So I'm not going to talk about firm polenta. You maybe have had little appetizers where they make little squares of polenta and they put tomatoes on top and basil, and You could, you know, you basically cube it. But this is my very, very, very favorite way of eating it. And just put a little water in there. And then what we're going to do is, again, this is very hot, okay? And this is how I would serve it. I sometimes let it cool just a little bit. And then I take some green beans. Today I only could find green beans. There were no yellow ones, but that's okay. Okay, and then we're gonna take the pesto and we're gonna get another spatula. Seems like one never has enough spatulas. And we're gonna get the pesto, which conveniently is already in a jar, thanks to my fantastic help here. And I'm just gonna, you know, slap some on the green beans. Now sometimes they get creative and really fun, and I take the pesto and I make little green dots, and I put the pesto inside the polenta by just scooping it and just putting dots. But right now I only want the to cover the green beans with the pesto. Okay, and again, I always taste everything. Nothing has really changed in flavor. The pesto is still delicious. Rinse my hands just for a moment there. And then I get the tomatoes and I get them scraped off. Now, if I could tell you that these tomatoes are like candy, okay? And I carefully just place them down however you want. You see, I've got a lot of caramelized garlic, which you absolutely, you might think, gosh, she's got garlic in the pesto and she's gonna put beans on top of it, but I don't know, I don't think you can ever have too much garlic. And I don't think you can have too many tomatoes either, to tell you the truth. And if I had arugula, which I don't have, I would actually put down a bed of arugula, then I would put the polenta on top of that, and then I would put the tomatoes. But this is basically this dish. It's a very simple dish. We're eating pesto, but we're not eating pasta, okay? And we just basically are having green beans, tomatoes, and soft polenta. And how might I finish that? Maybe I would put a little piece of garlic on the top, just so it looks nice like that. Maybe one beautiful tomato. It would look like it jumped up from the bottom. But that is our soft polenta, roasted tomato, and green beans. Okay. Now, one more thing with the pesto that I just want to show you, and then we have to move on because we're almost going to be out of time, and I want to be able to show you this too. And let me get these out of the way because it's with these zucchini noodles, you don't, as I spiralize them, and if you buy them from the grocery store, I would just put a little. You don't have to blanch these, okay? They don't need to be blanched or anything. I would put a little bit of juice, a little bit of citrus. And I have a lime here actually, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of lime. And do you know that the lime actually, kind of like when you eat ceviche, the lime actually cooks the zucchini. Now, I love to put strawberries on this kind of salad, and right now, the strawberries would go right with the zucchini and basil. But because we're doing zucchini here, and then we're going to use a little bit of pesto, just a little bit. Again, I'm trying to show you ways of not always eating pasta and pesto, because there are other ways. You see, it's a little bit just curly. And then if you wanted, you could even add some beans if you wanted, you know, some lima beans. I have some lima beans here. Again, that would be your salad that you could put on a small plate. I have a very big plate here, but that's okay. You could just serve it like this. I think that, and that's two different things. So you have pesto, that you can put on pasta, but I encourage you to try new ways with the zucchini noodles and other kinds of vegetable noodles that you can make. And this is your soft polenta. So we're going to do our last thing because I always have to leave at least 10 minutes for questions. And we're going to move this Cuisinart, and we're going to bring out the Vitamix, okay? And the Vitamix is a high-speed blender. And if you had a regular blender, you could absolutely use this because this is not something you need to have a super strong machine for, because you're just pulverizing and blending up cantaloupe. It's a very simple thing. Now, I like getting the recipe out. This is not my recipe, but I made it last summer, and I think I made it like 50 times last summer because it was so delicious, okay? So what we're gonna do is we have cantaloupe, which I've cubed, and I've taken a whole cantaloupe, and we need 6 cups, and I have figured out that 6 cups is roughly a whole cantaloupe, okay? So this cantaloupe is going inside the machine, that is if I'm not throwing it around, okay? And I have a smaller Vitamix, not the gigantic kind, so I'm not going to be able to do all the cantaloupe at one time. And I think even the bigger machines probably couldn't do it all at one time either. Okay, so according to this, then we need to have 2 teaspoons of lime juice. And again, we're back to making citrus. My friend told me the other day that where she comes from, they don't talk about limes and lemons, that they're kind of all the same to her. I thought, oh, what an interesting idea, because limes are so much cheaper than lemons. I thought maybe I'm just going to start using them interchangeably, you know? So we need to have 2 tablespoons of lime juice. So I'm going to quickly just juice these. And you hope that there's a lot of juice when you buy the limes. And we're going to, we need 2 tablespoons, okay? And I'll get to tablespoon. We need 2 tablespoons. 1 and 2. I have a little bit of basil in there already. And then we need to have a half a cup of cucumber. I like to buy these little Persian cucumbers. These are actually, I just found these at the market. If you are buying small cucumbers like this, you don't have to take out the seeds, okay? But what I want to show you really quickly so that you know how to do this, in case you don't, just for a second, let me show you. I'm operating here in a very tiny little space. Is it says to peel the cucumbers. So this is a washed cucumber, and I don't know, I never take off all the peel because I like those to have a little bit of dark green in there. So even when I'm slicing cucumbers, I leave it like this because I just think it's nicer. I think it's prettier. So let's just get all the garbage in one place. And what you would do, I just want to show you this. I mean, just you're gonna cut one side off, a very thin slice, okay? And then you're gonna cut this into small strips. Okay, and then you're going to cut little tiny dice. Okay, the half a cup that is actually going into the Cuisinart, it doesn't matter how it's cut because it's all going to get pulverized. Okay, and let's just get all of that cut up, and let's get all these loose ends out of here. And we need to have a half a cup, which I just seem to have. Thought I had a half a cup, but I don't seem to have a half a cup. Sometimes things move and disappear just because. Here, so we need a half a cup of cucumbers, okay? And the crazy thing is I usually eye all of this. I'm just showing you that I'm measuring it. But to tell you the truth, when I do this by myself and I'm in my house and no one's looking, I just put it in there according to how I do. Okay, so that is our cucumbers. And then we also need to have ginger. And the recipe calls, if I remember correctly, the recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of grated ginger. Now, you don't have to bother so much. I chopped a bunch up, and I'm just going to take this much, which I think is a half a cup. And I like it a little more gingery anyway. And I'm just going to show you all, just everybody knows what fresh ginger looks like. And what's important is you've got to peel it. And I usually take it back with a spoon. I'm not going to go over all of this because I know we've done it. But you just take a spoon and you actually just peel it. Or you could attack it with a peeler. Either way. But that is, I keep it in a little container like that, so it stays fresh. I don't put it in a plastic bag so much because it builds moisture. And the last thing that we need is some kind of plant-based milk, okay? And I'm gonna get that on here. And we have just a few minutes here. And we need a total of a half a cup, okay? This is fresh almond milk. And we need a half a cup. I think sometimes the soup, depending on the cantaloupe, needs a little more. So I'm going to actually keep the milk out. Okay, and we've got this very full. And what am I going to do with the lid? It's going to be noisy for just a very few minutes. And hopefully this always gives me all the time. I never like using that. I run into it. I start to trust that this one works perfectly, and then I end up moving it. It happens to me all the time. Okay, that is pretty much that, like that. Okay, and we're pouring that in. Now that's not all our cantaloupe. Remember I said we were having to do everything in 2 batches. Okay, so we already put in all of our ginger. So basically, and I didn't put in, we'll put in the rest of our milk now. And I put in all the cucumber. And it's a lot of cantaloupe. It's a lot of soup. But you know what? Sometimes I even eat this soup at breakfast time because it's so cool and refreshing. And I wanted to show it to you because it's just the simplest thing and it's just the most delicious. Okay, I think that's it. Try to get this lid off. I always like setting this thing in a cup. This is my technique here, is putting this thing upside down because otherwise the temper just seems to want it. It's a rolling thing and you put it on the counter and before you know it's up. So I like setting it up in a cup like that. Okay, and we pour this. Okay, and then I usually get a ladle. But let me just get a ladle here. And we still have to add the basil. Remember, this is about, our show here today is about learning about all the things that you can do with basil. But before I add the basil, now this soup usually has to go into the fridge. It's pretty thick, actually. And it's one of those things where you can add a little, I'm gonna add a little bit more milk because I don't like it so thick. I like it a little thinner, so I'm just adding, again, that's your own choice. That's really a preference, you know, with any kind of soup, hot or cold. How smooth you like it. Like sometimes you want chunks. Now, like any kind of gazpacho or cold soup, it's always nice to have some texture, okay? So I cut up a lot of cucumber and I put this in. Now you could use it as garnish. I put a bunch in now, like this. I put a bunch in. And then we get our basil. And I just want to show you, we're almost done here. The last of the last, we're almost at the very end. The way that you would cut basil is because it's a very delicate plant. And it's not one of those things that you want to take a knife and just chop, 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 chop till it's like, looks like how you chop parsley or how you chop cilantro. With basil, you want to treat it delicately, okay? And I think it tells you that because it's so perfumey and it kind of tells you that I'm something very special and I need to be treated special. So I just piled all these leaves on top. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll them up like a little tight roll, kind of a jelly roll style, if you know what that means, just jelly roll style. And then we're going to take our knife and we're going to make a chiffonade. And we're just going to cut little teeny strips, okay? And that is pretty much all you want to do. You know, when you're making pizza and you're putting basil on top, they just recommend that you tear the basil. You know, if you put basil into the tomato sauce, you just tear the leaves and let them float. Now I'm just gonna, I don't like long pieces, so I'm just gonna cut it going the other direction, so I end up with littler pieces, okay? And it says that we need about 2 tablespoons, and this is only 1. I should have done more right away, but this is basically, I'm just gonna do very quickly, and you get the idea. And you taste the soup, and you say, does it need anything else? Does it need more basil? The original recipe came with, I think, a half a teaspoon of salt. The other thing that I use that I like very much is I talk a lot about using citrus, and I like making the zest. And if I have a whole lime here, and I'll show you, I have a zester here, and this is, I just peel this really, and again, do this with lemons or oranges, okay? There's, I just use a little bit of that to bring up the flavor as well, the lime, okay? And this you can chop to death. Again, this is what you're not going to do with your basil, is chop it to death. But you are going to just want to make sure. Okay, so all of that now, this whole thing is now going into the soup, okay? This whole thing is going into the soup. We are going to give the soup a big swirl. Now, normally I would put this in some mason jars and get it in the refrigerator, but just want to show you how beautiful it is. And we do want to taste it before we serve it. And does it have enough ginger? Oh, I wish you were all here. You know, I'm so used to teaching class in person. In these webinars, I've learned that you all are far away and can't smell and can't taste. But if I could just explain to you how refreshing this is, and once it's cold, okay, you really want to chill it, okay, at least for a couple hours. But again, I'm going to just show you that I'm going to make a serving. Technically, this is 8 ounces, so 8 to 12 ounces is a serving. So I usually do like a ladle and a half, and that technically is a serving. And then I put a little bit of cucumber on the top. I find a little teeny basil, just a little one. That's in the center, not a big one. Nobody wants to eat just a gigantic one. I look in the center for the, and that is pretty much. So I'm going to clean up, do a little cleanup here, because I like making it so that you can see everything that we've done. In 45 minutes, actually, I have to say, we've done a lot of things. Let me just get this cleaned up, and this cleaned up, and this over here. I'm going to show you our very beautiful noodles, zucchini noodles with lima beans and pesto. I'm going to show you the soft polenta with the roasted tomatoes and the green beans. And then we have the cantaloupe-cucumber basil soup. So we could have class for hours talking about basil and all the things. One other thing that I can just verbally tell you is if you're buying any strawberries these days in the market, come home, slice those strawberries, put balsamic vinegar on top, and macerate them. Now, usually macerating means that you put honey and you put black pepper and you put the balsamic vinegar. But I don't think balsamic vinegar has so much sweetness that I don't think you need to have any other additional sweetness. So just pour some balsamic vinegar and a little bit of black pepper onto your strawberries. And those macerated strawberries can be eaten on salad, it can be eaten on ice cream, it can be eaten on the zucchini noodles, actually. It would be delicious. So if anyone has any questions, we need to finish today exactly at 6, so there's no time for dessert, but I would be happy to answer any questions
Thank you so much, Carole. Really beautifully done. We do have a question. Your fruits and vegetables were commented upon as being so beautiful. And one of the participants wanted to know where you shop. And I see somebody looked like they raised their hand, but put your question in the, yes, Suzanne, I see your hand. Just put it in the chat and we'll try to get to it.
Well, I have to tell you that I'm spoiled, and I spoil myself because I go to I'm a seasonal eater, okay? And I support the farmers, and I'm really into eating local food. So I go to the farmers markets all over New York City. Primarily, I shop at Union Square Market. Their market is on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Even during the pandemic, they've organized themselves so that they're very spread apart, and I feel safe shopping, and nobody's picking their own vegetables at the market now. They actually, you just point to it, and the farmer actually puts it in a bag and gives it to you. But I pride myself on shopping that way because I believe in eating locally, and I also believe in eating seasonally. In fact, I was just telling my very dearest friend that it's time to let go of the apples that we've been eating and consuming all winter long, because we now need to just move on to the strawberries and the berries and the plums. And before you know it, there will be time for the pears. And you're sad to let the berries go, but you've had the berries for the last 10 weeks. So again, just if you can teach yourself to eat that way, you eat the freshest and the most healthy way.
Gorgeous. And a very quick question. If someone's allergic to nuts, particularly soy, actually she's allergic to soy and almonds, what would you recommend for the cantaloupe soup?
Oh, a liquid. Let's just think about a liquid. I have to think. You know what? I probably would just use some water to thin it out. I mean, I think the almond milk gives it a little bit of consistency, but I off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of a replacement. Could you use coconut milk? Can she eat coconut?
I'm not sure. It looks like there's some.
Or oat milk or coconut milk. Either one of those things don't have nuts.
Oat milk. And to tell you the truth, I've used water. In fact, there's a recipe that Dr. Furman has for a cantaloupe slush, and he uses ice. And so if you want your soup cold, you can just not use the milk and use ice and have a lovely cantaloupe slush. One other question, which is, did you train as a chef? If so, where? Or where does one train as a chef?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know where you live. If you live in New York City, I mean, the Culinary Institute is a training ground. I grew up cooking from the time I was 9. My grandmother, my mother worked, and I literally would start to make dinners for them when I was a child. And then as I went to college, I needed a job, and the way I put myself through college on my own, cooking in restaurants. And I had no experience. And then when I got out of college, I worked for the next 11 years, working professionally, and I learned everything on the job training. But it is a love and a passion of mine that I've had my whole life. So I don't know if anybody ever saw that movie, Water for Chocolate, but I believe if you emanate love for food and you love what you're doing, and you just, it goes into the food.
Lovely. Carole, thank you so much. We're going to close, so we're relatively on time. I just want to remind everyone that this is part 1 of a 3-part cooking series. We've moved the time, if you've been here before, to 5 o'clock. So the next 2 sessions are going to be on July 12th and also July 26th at 5. If you're a fan of Carole, she has an Instagram page, Carole Foods, CaroleFoods. So you can find her on Instagram. And just so you know, we love having you here at Plant-Powered Metro New York, and we're adding courses every week. So please check our website and check our calendar. And if you aren't already on our mailing list, please sign up and join us. And let's see, we're also on Facebook and Instagram. So we have active communities, lots of information to share, and please come back.
And thank you for coming so much. Thank you for coming.